Good morning. My name is Katherine Darnstadt with Latent Design in Chicago, and the first two words here are the worst words in the English language. Let's be honest with you. I'm pretty sure cargotecture is made up. The last three words are the most misused words in the English language. So naturally, I'm going to tell you a story right now about how we made a pop-up retail space out of a shipping container, out of an innovative placemaking program for the city of Chicago. And it started with this problem. What we see on the weekends is we see the vendors like this at the festivals, and we want them to go into the vacant storefront that we see on our way to work every day. But for that 10 by 10 vendor to go into that 1,000 square foot storefront, they need to grow their business 10 times in scale. And that's an unrealistic expectation. On the other hand, fuck these things, right? We have them stacked up 4, 5, 6 high on the south and the west sides of our city, and they are literally walling off communities from one another. And so what we've looked at as an opportunity to take away the aesthetics from a container, which there are none, so it wasn't much to take away, and actually look at it as a functional and structural element and try and find a transitional space that could start to bridge this gap between the vendor. And last year, over the course of 8 weeks, with only right angles, with limited funding, we created BoomBox. This was the city's first pop-up retail structure, and it was also the city's first shipping container structure that bridges the gap between startup and storefront. Over the course of a year, we had 23 unique vendors within the space. 19 of them were women and persons of color like myself. And this is a story that we already know. We know who's not getting funding, who's not getting loans, who's not getting the long-term lease. It's women and persons of color like myself. So because I take those 5 words that I opened with very seriously, we knew we couldn't only make a space, we had to make a new system. So we developed the idea, we wrote 3 new pieces of municipal policy, we designed it, we built it, and we managed the structure itself in a fully vertically integrated business model. Because we believe in the process after a provocation, we wanted to be able to make more than one. So it wasn't about, we only did one, it would have been an accessory. When you could do more than one, we could create a new archetype. And we're fortunate enough that we're building the second one, opening the second one. What you see here is we build BoomBox in a warehouse over the course of 8 weeks. Nobody will give me any longer time to build it. So over the course of 8 weeks, we fully assembled the structure and then deconstructed itself. By working in this controlled environment, we can have a conversation with the city about modular manufacture, which is currently not happening within city limits itself. We can also then partner with vocational and job training programs to find ways to integrate both youth and transitional jobs for ex-offenders as needed. Because we look at this as a holistic system. We know some of our best carpenters are going to be criminals, and we need to find a way to integrate them back into society as well. So when we talk about equity, it's about the creation of jobs, it's about the creation of opportunities and the restoration of access. And then on that first day, a very, very long first day, we start to reassemble the structure itself and literally popping up on the site. And we see this, as I mentioned, as part of a new platform for economic and community development and creating jobs at every step of the way while supporting the small businesses that make up the majority of revenue and jobs within the city itself. And like I said, we have our second one. Our ribbon cutting is on Sunday for our Inglewood location. The first one was on the north side. This one is on the south side. And we are already booked until February of next year. So the demand just keeps continuing and growing itself. And with that, we look at BoomBox as an opportunity to bridge that gap between startup and storefront, but to provide a way for the businesses within our neighborhoods, within our community that are the backbone of our community to be able to stay in the neighborhoods that they've grown and thrived in their entire life. Thank you.
Thank you, Katherine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. How did you solicit vendors?
For the first one, the vendors, we went through our initial network of peers, of people who had side hustles that wanted to make it their primary hustle, and the first BoomBox was booked out within 3 months. So we didn't have to reach very far to get it booked out for the full year. With the second one, we partnered with adjacent community organizations and neighborhood organizations to start to build a pipeline from the incubator and accelerator programs into the space itself. Because the first one's on a really high traffic commercial corridor, it kind of just rents itself out because the rents are so high. In the South Side one, we wanted to have that stronger community partnership.
Great. You know, I have an obvious Chicago bias, but I've seen these and they're really fantastic. Can you talk about kind of the strategy for the long term? How do these stay sustainable? How do you make sure the city pays attention to how successful these are?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. The first one kind of flew under the radar. We're in a public-private partnership now with the city of Chicago and have found a way, like I said, we wrote 3 new pieces of policy. So we modified building code, modified zoning code, business licensure, and created a new building typology for the city of Chicago now. So that made our level of exclusivity for this project. Within then, now we are seeing opportunities within different departments. The CTA wants to put one outside of a stop because they see that as part of their transit-oriented development strategy. Parks District wants to put it because they see it's 1 degree from a concession stand. And then the biggest step is going on to vacant land. So that's the biggest one and the biggest hurdle with building and zoning code right now. But next year we'll be doing multiple on land as part of retail and commercial corridor revitalization. So fingers crossed on that one.
Question in terms of sort of the space around the BoomBox, what happens sort of in the public space where there's ideas for like layering other uses, or like let's say you had a bookstore, is there an idea to do a partnership with a library and have a pop-up little free library? Because when these are open, they're great. When they're closed, what is the presence on the street? Have you been thinking about activating the area around?
Because we're working on public spaces, there's adjacent programming that can happen, and the vendors themselves really take over and transform that. So we had a library, a pop-up library in the space. We had a vegan chocolatier. It's not only retail, but it's also goods and services and community functions. When there's a vendor in the space, they have kind of first priority to assume the public space, but otherwise we make sure that there's other programming happening, like maybe starting a community or farmers market, or bringing acro yoga, because that's a thing that people want to see, layering that all into the space. And that's really key.
You said that the average vendor has to grow their business 10 times in order to get to retail. How does it compare for them to get into a space like this?
We looked at it from a price standpoint. We're matching prices that are festival pricey. So it's $500 to go to festival tent per day. So we're looking at $500 per week. We're also allowing flexible rental terms so that you can get short-term leases. Right now, the average is between 2 weeks and 3 months. So that allows you, if you have a business that you're doing, you have your 9 to 5 and then you have your 5 to 9, you could take that 5 to 9 and start to say, well, I want to take 2 weeks and put out a marketing campaign or try a retail storefront or see if this can actually become my primary passion. And so we make sure that financial access is there and then are working through to make sure we can continue to build them affordably to continue to rent them affordably.
Have you had anyone go on to a retail space?
2 vendors out of the 23 went on to longer term pop-ups, so they went into storefronts for 6 months. More than half of them had only had a digital presence before, so this was their first physical space. And now, after a year, since we're in the first year, we're actually tracking and figuring out what those metrics are. And on the South Side one, there aren't a lot of spaces to go into after this.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.